So considering Trump and Brexit and all kinds of other things, do you think the Lib Dems should be at the forefront of making the case for free trade?
Yes, absolutely. And, the amount of fantasy that is talked by Brexiteers, is really quite dispiriting. I saw Boris's interview yesterday on Sophie Rage. And he's kind of talking about, how he doesn't think the EU countries, they wouldn't want to impose tariffs. And it's not like they get a choice, right? If we're out and there's no deal and we're on kind of WTO rules, they don't have a choice about putting tariffs on. But it's almost like, he doesn't really engage with any of that. So yes, we absolutely should. But it makes the case for us being able to be in organisations like the European Union, and then we need to work, across, deals that can be done with other parts of the world to be able to make trade freer right across the board.
I've got another question on the live stream. What's your stance on the gig economy? What do you think about Uber and Deliveroo and that lot?
I think we are moving to a world where there's going to be much more flexibility, where having one job that's 9 to 5 and doing it for 40 years, that's gone. My issue with a company like Uber, first of all, you've got technology, which is amazing, right? What it actually does by connecting up, people who want to go in a particular place with, people who want to drive them there, that is brilliant, and we ought to be able to use things like that more widely when it comes to things like how do you solve, bus transport in rural areas, for example. There's something brilliant there. What Uber have done now is they've combined it with an exploitative model that basically also tries to profiteer out of reducing employment rights. And so, they ought to be able to get some economic benefit out of the having developed a great piece of technology that's really smart bit, but they shouldn't be allowed to be exploitative in terms of employment rights and sort of profiteer in that way. So that's where I think some of the challenges, and it's about then how is it regulated. The same, if you look at something like 0 hours contracts, right? I wouldn't ban them, and as an employment relations minister, I resisted banning them because actually the evidence shows that more than half of the people who are on 0 hours contracts like them and they work really well. But it all depends where the power is. So if you're an IT contractor and you're paid quite well and you want the flexibility, then a 0 hours contract might be brilliant for you, and you can decide when or not you're going to work. Fine. If somebody is on very low pay and they're having to pay their rent and they don't know when they're going to get shifts and they find it very difficult to arrange childcare around that perhaps, and they don't really have the choice to turn around and say no to a particular shift because they're then worried that they're not going to get offered future shifts, then that's, in my view, an example where an employer is abusing 0 hours contracts. So it should be a genuinely flexible arrangement on both sides, where both have the power to say yes or no, I'm going to take this shift and work. And generally, people should have some good notice, or if a shift is cancelled at short notice, there should be compensation. So I think part of this is how you can deal with it with regulation, and about making sure that that flexibility is done responsibly, and some companies and employers do that. And some don't, or sort of try to get away with a technological change that sort of opens up an ability to then let in some exploitation, which looks attractive because they'll make a little bit more money out of that, and they're not having to, pay holiday pay or whatever else. Well, no, you shouldn't be able to get some benefit out of that, but you should get the benefit out of genuine innovation. So I think the gig economy can work well for us. But we also need to be careful about what the rules are to prevent exploitation.
The green belt. Should we build houses on that?
I think we do need to recognise our natural environment is precious. And so, carpeting over it doesn't make sense. What we made a strong case for in Coalition, which I think is sensible, is to look to build some garden cities, and so to find places where you can build new conurbations, that will be sustainable. So you look at places that are already on a train line, for example, and you can then build the infrastructure around it and create sort of modern areas. And I think that this has to be part of the answer. That said, it is really important that we respect the natural environment that we have. It's important for well-being. It's obviously important for biodiversity, and so that is a balance that needs to be struck. And also, what works in one area might be different in another area. Well, in that case, I think it's very straightforward, actually. For me, it comes back to the rights of the young people, being educated, and the responsibility of the state to make sure that young people have an education is sort of well enshrined. We wouldn't let a situation happen where young people were able to not learn English, not learn maths, not learn those kind of basic skills. We recognise that the state has to provide that. Now, and I would say that good quality information about sex and relationships is also a key part of that. It's important from a health perspective. Young people deserve to have the information about, say, sexually transmitted diseases to be able to protect themselves and keep themselves safe. It's important from safeguarding, so that children growing up, when we know, sadly, that the greatest likelihood of when children are abused, it's by someone they know in a position of trust. And so making sure that young people also know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate in terms of touching is also vital. So again, you have to make sure that is done in an age appropriate way, obviously sensitively, within a school environment. And in terms of LGBT plus, also, you have in every community, you've got young people who are gay, you've got people who will be in schools who have two mums or two dads, single parents. So a wider understanding that there are different types of family, and that some people are gay, and that's okay. That doesn't make somebody a bad person. It doesn't make them wrong. I think that's so important for young people's self-esteem, and every young person has that right to feel that who they are is okay, and that they can love themselves, and that they don't need to feel that they're somehow wrong. So I think for me, that rights of that child are what I put first and foremost, and that is why that education is so important, and no child should be denied it.
So we've got a question from the live stream. It says, the Labour and Tories have found a magic money tree. How do we make the case for our own public spending commitments when other parties have moved far away from reality? They do like their magic money trees, and it's always, it's always tempting, and being disciplined about being credible is obviously a kind of harder path. But I think it's important that we do that when we properly cost manifestos and so on. Not least because we don't want to promise what we can't deliver. I mean, we've been there and done that, and it's not a smart thing to do. So I think we do need to have credibility in what we put forward. But I also think we shouldn't be afraid to be radical. I don't think this point in our politics is where there's appetite for incrementalism. I think people genuinely want change and transformation. So when we're assessing policies, we should be prepared to be bold.